this.
Okay, this is Ring Wraps at Pep Talk UK. I'm with Sky Sports' very own Mr. Boxing. How are you doing, Adam?
Very good, thank you. Obviously, good myself, and family's all healthy and happy, but worried about, as everybody else is, what's happening in the world. And, we just want to make sure that in our world, in boxing, that, fighters and fans are all healthy and kept safe. And, so that's a worry, but it's a much bigger worry than just in boxing or in sport. It's a difficult time globally at the minute. We've just got to take a day at a time and get through it as best we can. But the Usyk Chisora press conference went ahead today. Very exciting fight, big fight for May the 23rd. Fight that's been talked about for a long time. We sort of had to keep Derek from losing the plot a couple of times in training. When he thought it was on, then it was off, and that was David Hayes' job of sending him off on holiday and making sure everything was all right, because I think he's waited a long time for this. But we've got a date, and so May 23rd goes ahead with what's happening on it in the world, and obviously that takes priority. But should it go ahead on May the 23rd at the O2, which we're hopeful it will be a fantastic night. It's got the ingredients to be a wonderful heavyweight battle. Derek Chisora and sort of the Indian summer of his career, and as big and strong and tenacious as ever, against the guy that many people think is one of the best pound-for-pound fighters in the world today, and a phenomenon in Alexander Usyk, who's done everything that's asked of him as an amateur and a cruiserweight pro, and now wants to be world heavyweight champion. So this is a great test for him as he waits for AJ.
Obviously, you touched on that cursed C word and the ramifications globally and locally of that. Obviously, we're all on further notice until more things kind of settle on that. In the meantime, it's business as usual. Fingers crossed, touch wood. On a lighter, brighter note, as you just mentioned, this is a nice clash of styles. Do you think they're good dance partners?
I think they could be very good dance partners. That's a good question. I think that what you had at cruiserweight with Tony Bellew and Alexander Usyk was an interesting sort of chess match for a few rounds, and then Alexander got his timing right, and he was too good for Tony. But this one's different because you know what they're going to do. We've got one who's got the most wonderful movement and skills, and the other one who the only way of him having any chance in this is to close the distance and rough up Usyk. So Chisora's, they could be perfect for each other. Chisora's going to give it absolutely everything and fight at a high octane rate for round after round, and Alexander's got to find a way of keeping him off, maybe hitting harder than he suggested he can at heavyweight when he fought Witherspoon in the autumn. But he'll have developed over the last few months as a heavyweight even more, so that will help him. But he's going to have a bull coming towards him, isn't he? And a tough, genuine, big heavyweight who's been there or thereabouts of the last decade, and it's a real test. Of course, he's favourite to come through at Usyk, and he's the mandatory challenger for the winner of Joshua and Pulev as the stage just tumbles down. But as you said, you mentioned the coronavirus, and I think that, look, we all have, as hour by hour, things are getting postponed and cancelled, and for everybody at Sky Sports, it's a very difficult time, because we don't know, where this is going and how long it will take, and the most important thing is that, everybody is safe and everybody is healthy. So we all have to do what the government and the authorities advise us to, and and keep as safe and our loved ones as safe as we can. And sport is secondary to that. And of course, there's going to be a lot of uncertainty, a lot of difficult moments for people who are waiting for sporting events, who are waiting for fights. Boxers are individuals; they only get paid when the fights actually happen. But we're going to have to sort of listen to advice on a much bigger and wider scale and broader scale and more important scale than any of us in this industry.
Yeah, it puts things into perspective. I heard Eddie mention that obviously people who will and have bought tickets will be fully reimbursed if the worst case scenario comes into effect. So, that's some reassurance, at least, on a low level for the avid boxing fans.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure that Matchroom, they're the promoters, and they'll do everything they can to look after the fans, who have bought tickets. If fights are postponed or they don't happen, then, I'm sure they'll look after them. But, as far as we're concerned as the broadcasters, we've got, huge schedules on Sky Sports, and, our customers are this time are going to be, going to be maybe even more reliant on what they're watching on screen, because a lot of them are going to be at home, and it's really important. Derek, take care. See you soon. All right, look after yourself. Keep safe. And I think that that's really important, that we continue as best as we can to provide that entertainment. That if the live sport's not happening, that there'll be a huge amount of work going on behind the scenes to make sure those channels are filled with good stuff. And obviously our people at Sky, we worry about their health and safety, and that's the most important thing, is that everybody keeps, whether it's members of our our customers, or fight fans in boxing, or general public, that everybody keeps safe, and it's listening to advice on a daily basis from the experts. And as Eddie said, he's no expert. I'm certainly not. Jurgen Klopp, I think, said this week, don't ask the man in the baseball cap with the dodgy shave. We're not the experts. We just listen to advice, and we'll take the precautions that are necessary. And if that means that our families have to be behind closed doors, or our staff, or whatever, then that's what needs to be done. And if it means that sporting events are postponed, cancelled, or put back a few months, and that's what happens. And everyone's going to have to get used to it.
Well, we're using the Premier League as kind of the litmus test, and obviously there are emergency talks in place as we speak to postpone the season for the next fortnight at least.
Well, they've already announced that they're postponing until April the 3rd. So, that's an indication already that certainly the next, 3 weeks, is going to be pretty barren on the sporting front, which you would expect. And does that mean we've got a golden contract show next week at the York Hall? I don't know. The latest on the World Super Series in Riga next weekend, which we're meant to be broadcasting, and will either of those happen? The next big UK show we've got here for Matchroom is the Josh Kelly Avanesian fight. So look, what will happen to that? Will it be will it go to York Hall if there's a ruling that comes out that can't have 5,000 crowd, or will it stay there, or will it get postponed altogether? And there's the one after that in Newcastle. So for those fighters on the cards, not just the fans who've got tickets, but for the fighters preparing for those, it's really tough times. And also, we don't know whether they might pick up the coronavirus, or their families, and they'll have to self-isolate. We've seen it with a lot of the Premier League clubs have come out. There's issues with Arsenal and Chelsea, and it's gonna be very difficult, and it's going to spread, and obviously the containment and the delay, and that's what the government are doing, and the medical experts are telling us what we need to do, and what to try and prevent that, and we just have to listen and do the best we can. And as far as the business side goes, it all just totally gets overridden by the health and safety of the nation. That's paramount.
Well, I mean, as far as business is concerned, this is uncharted territory anyway.
Absolutely.
So, with regards to using the Premier League as an example, it seems that you only need one case, and then the ripple, the butterfly effect takes place, because one team, one manager, one player has contracted the virus. How long have they had it? Who are the teams they played in the last 10 days? How many people have been cross-contaminated? It's a never-ending cascading effect. I mean,
yeah, it's a domino effect, isn't it? I think that that it's going to be very, very difficult over the coming weeks, and it's just a case of how long that will last. And do 70-80% of the population have to sort of contract it for then they're to become an immunity later? I don't know. As I said, we're not the medical experts. We just listen to advice. And they say, obviously, the elderly, we've all got elderly, either parents or family members, and we have to make sure that they're safe. And our children, who they say, the kids, it will be more mild, but, kids pick up things at school on a daily basis, colds and coughs and all the rest of it. So we just have to listen to advice. And, some people felt that maybe schools would be closed, yesterday or after the Cobra meeting, and they weren't. And that's the government's advice, is that's not the best thing at the moment. So we all take our kids to school and we listen to what the best advice is. And that's what we can do. And, as far as business and the difficulties in many people's business, not just in sport, but, all around, you just got to, you've got to take it day by day and listen to the advice and offer. The most important thing are people's health. The most important thing above anything else, above any boxing event, any sporting event, it's people's health, their livelihoods.
Say, health is wealth.
Absolutely, and you know, and we've got to do everything we can to you know to listen to the advice, and you know, people I think at first were thinking, oh, why do we have to wash our hands? Why do we have to do that? But you know, it's going to get it's going to get more and more widespread if people don't listen to that advice, I guess, and don't self-isolate when they need to, and people who are feeling ill should stay at home, and that goes with our business at Sky, that goes with everybody, and you know, I'm sure at some point the fighters or some of the fighters will start becoming ill, and you know, or their family members or their trainers or whatever, and as you're right, it's going to affect everybody or a lot of people. So it's a day at a time, and it's
the good news, Adam, is I was checking the statistics last night, and obviously they're moving with the time, but I think a good 50 to 60% of people, the bulk of the people who are contaminated, do make a speedy, natural recovery. On a more positive note, if I could just take you back to the face-off.
Yes.
I did notice from where I was watching that Usyk is at least an inch taller, maybe more than Derek. Obviously, Derek's twice as wide as him. So I come back to the dance partner reference. Is Usyk going to have the range advantage? Not just the mobility, we know that's a given, but the range advantage to maybe there's a bit of demolition. To pop shot Derek. We know Derek's going to come in a la Jake LaMotta, and Usyk's going to be a la Sugar Ray Robinson, to reference a throwback fight. It's the bull in the China shop, but is Usyk going to be able to use his size, maybe not his mass?
I think that the delay in this is favouring Alexander Usyk because having talked to Evander Holyfield at length and David Haye, cruiserweights that have made the move up to heavyweight, it takes time, and I think the quicker Derek would have got Alexander in the ring after his performance last autumn, which was a little sketchy, and people were saying, has he got the power at heavyweight, it would have been better, and I think Derek's probably annoyed that hasn't happened. But look, it is what it is. It will happen in May, or we hope, maybe even beyond, and I think they've used that time to get, see you later, they've used that time to get Alexander into more of a heavyweight body. So yeah, I think that does favour him. Having said that, Derek's still going to have the size advantage, you'd have thought, and the natural heavyweight advantage over him. He's just got to make that work, and the question is, will he?
Last question.
Sure.
Just moving a bit to the left. Cinco de Mayo.
Yeah.
The revered date. Coronavirus effects to one side.
Yeah.
If the much anticipated fight goes on the way, can you give me a little bit of your thoughts on Canelo versus Billy Joe Saunders?
I think it's terrific that Billy Joe has finally got the fight that he's craved for many years. He's always fancied a shot at Canelo. He's always thought he had the style to give him a lot of problems, and it's a tough ask. If it does happen on Cinco de Mayo, obviously the virus to one side, because we don't know when that might happen, and maybe it'll be delayed and happen somewhere else at another date, and that might suit Billy Joe better, because I think it's very tough that weekend in Vegas, to get a decision out there against Canelo, obviously. And Canelo will have to be a big favourite going in, but I think Billy Joe's got a real chance of causing him a lot of trouble, and I think that he deserves it. He's been hanging around waiting for it. We all knew it could be him, could be Callum. I'm glad it's one of them. Callum's got huge amounts of other fights. He could take a rematch with John Ryder. He could fight Daniel Jacobs. He could fight Chris Eubank Jr. I think that would be a really interesting domestic affair. He could fight the winner or loser of Canelo and Billy Joe. There's a load out there for Callum. One of them, I'm glad. It was always sort of thought it was going to be one of the two, and it sounds like Billy Joe's going to get it. But I think they're obviously going to wait and see what happens with the coronavirus, because fights in the States are being cancelled or postponed left, right, and centre. So that may not happen. But if it does, obviously Ben Davison with Billy Joe, great trainer. Wish them all the very best, and let's hope he can spring what would be not a massive upset, as I think it would be if Derek beat Alexander here, but I think it would be a big upset if he could come back with something from the Canelo fight. I certainly think he'll push him and give him a real tough test.
You say massive. I have Canelo any day of the week in the top 3 best fighters on the planet. Maybe in the top 2, maybe the top 1. We all love and have high hopes for Billy Joe. Do you, in your humble opinion, see the fight going 12 rounds?
I think Billy Joe's last performance was poor in LA, and it may have given Team Canelo, the sort of, okay, we'll take Billy Joe now, because he was very disappointing. Performance, yes, but a performance like that, a very sort of sluggish performance, I thought. And Billy knew that. And I think a performance like that, then he'll be in trouble against Canelo. But I don't see Billy being like that. I think he'll be ready for the fight of his life. And I think, I've just got a funny feeling he'll give him, he may not win the fight, but I think he'll give him real trouble. And I think he'll come away from it with his reputation really enhanced even further, Billy Joe Saunders. And I'm not saying he can't win this fight in Vegas. Harder. Cinco de Mayo, harder. And I, like you, think Canelo is a terrific fighter. And I watched Daniel Jacobs, who I thought was very good in his own way, but Canelo is too clever for Danny, and he may well be for Billy Joe, but he's not without a chance in this, Billy Joe Saunders.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Canelo against Danny Jacobs, he was working Jacobs out, and I do think Jacobs had the handbrake on the first half of the fight. I think he kicked himself afterwards because he got going a bit too late. You can't give Canelo a second, let alone a round. The other question that a lot of people are asking is, who's the more natural on 6'8"? Because we've seen Canelo go up and down. We've seen Billy blow up off-season. He seems focused now. Ben Davidson's a great mentor, coach, etc. Is Canelo, not height-wise, but again, is he the bigger guy?
Well, as you say, he's fought Kovalev and he's coming back down, and Billy Joe probably could squeeze down to middleweight, or certainly he's in betwixt and between a bit, isn't he, those two weights. So that's always been tricky for Billy Joe. But, ultimately, it shouldn't come into it. It should come down to the skills of the two guys. The weight really shouldn't have a massive effect. Canelo's come up through them, Billy Joe too, and I think that it's fine. I think as a weight fight, it's fine. I think it will just come down to who's got the better quality ultimately, and I can see why Canelo will start favourite there. But as I said, Billy Joe, he's got a great, fantastic record. He's a world champion. He's a tough guy to beat. So Canelo's going to have to be at his very best, and I'm sure he will be.
From your inside knowledge, are there any of the infamous Golden Boy weight clauses in this potential fight?
I don't know. I'm not privy to the contracts. I don't know.
Because Danny Jacobs threw caution to the wind, which is something I would advise every person who's fighting Canelo. If they're given a weight clause, I would just say take the hit, lose the money, and be healthier in the fight.
Well, that's down to their deal. That's down to what the teams decide. They've got to have their fighters' best interests at heart, obviously. A lot of money on the table in these huge fights, and they've got to make those decisions carefully, cleverly. And for me, the most important thing, and just to finish off with, is the health of everybody at the moment. So that's, money aside, it's, families are being affected by what's happening, this pandemic that's happening globally, and everybody should stay safe and healthy as best as they can.
Absolutely. Well, Adam, thank you very much for your time. This was Pep Talk UK, and I'm Ray Reps.